Today, we are joined by Bobby Blanco from MASNsports.com. And the main question that we'll be tackling here today is how can the Nationals get back in contention in 2025?
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to check us out over on Twitter at RyanClary11 and as well as the show page at LO_Nationals for all your latest Nationals news and notes. Check us out over on Twitter. And while you're at it, search up Locked On Nationals wherever you get your podcast, whether it's over on YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Again, wherever you get your pods, that is where you'll find your daily coverage of the Washington Nationals. Again, just search Locked On Nationals. And we are joined today by Bobby Blanco from MASNsports.com. And Bobby, we'll just kind of open up the curtain real quick. It took me 3 different tries to get that cold intro. I've been up since 6 a.m. moving out of this apartment. It has been a bear. You can tell I'm exhausted. If you're on YouTube, you can probably hear the echoes because I'm literally in an empty apartment right now as we sit here today. The only thing left for me to move is my office desk and as well as my chair that I'll be doing myself. So, Bobby, explain to the people, it's been a rough morning for me.
Hey, man, no shame. I think if you go back to at least every episode that I've been on since July, this has been my background because I moved too in July, and I have yet to update the studio that I have at my new house, which I need to do soon because the room that I'm currently in is supposed to be my baby's room when he gets here in December. So that needs to change quickly over the next couple months. But thank God for the off season, so I have some downtime to switch some things around in my house. So I think you have no shame in moving out and having a little echo. Bobby,
did you just break some news?
I'm pretty sure I've told you that we were expecting a kid.
No, you did not.
Well, breaking news on Locked On. Yes, I'm expecting my first child in December.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, well, that was part of the big reason for the move this summer.
Maybe I'm just oblivious, which is very possible. But wow, I had no idea. Congratulations, Bobby.
Thanks, man. Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's honestly why we moved, and that's why this room is a mess, and that's why every time I'm on the show, my background's blurred because I don't want you to see the mess that's behind me. So I think you have no shame in being in an empty apartment, whereas I have been to clean this room and going on 4 months now.
Well, yeah, you know what? Well, we're joined by Bobby Blanco, and I think baby Blanco could be raised as a Nationals fan. Am I right, Bobby?
Oh, yeah. I mean, his mother is still a diehard Orioles fan. Mm-hmm. I'm still, I root for the O's. I root for the Nats when I'm not at work. His mother's side of the family are mostly Orioles fans, but my side of the family is mostly Nats fans now. So he'll be split at least. But I think growing up closer to DC, he's going to have to be leaning a little more towards the Nationals. I didn't have the Nationals when I grew up. If the Nationals were here when I grew up, I'd be a Nationals fan, not an Orioles fan. So it's a little different for me. But it'll be interesting to see how his fandom grows as he gets older.
Well, I mean, I don't know how to continue after this. I just want to ask about that the entire time. But congrats.
Totally on this crazy area's fandom when it comes to baseball. We can tie it back into football since the Commanders just played the Ravens.
Yeah.
My son is being born into a crazy sports time. It's crazy to think that by the time he's old enough to understand what baseball and sports are, he will only know when the Nationals are a good team. And when the Commanders are a good team at the same time, that was never the case when I was growing up. I mean, he's going to be so fortunate.
I know, and seriously, and also his first season, I mean, it's coming up this spring. You could potentially see a contending Nationals team, Bobby, and kind of getting into that conversation here, what is getting into that category, contending baseball? I mean, I think back to 2011, right before the Nationals made that huge jump in 2012, adding Bryce Harper, who came up, made his debut, I believe, in May against the Dodgers there. I mean, obviously the Nationals they were stockpiling talent for some time in the farm system. They went out before 2011, signed Jason Worth to that huge deal. They traded for Gio Gonzalez that offseason before 2012. A lot of different things went into them contending. And I mean, the question is, I think the big overwhelming question, and really everyone, what they're thinking right now is, how do the Nationals get back to that point? Like, if you were the GM, if you were Mike Rizzo, Bobby, like, what is step one for you this offseason to try to get back into contention?
I think when Mike talked to us at the end of the season, I mean, he admitted what some of the biggest things that they need to address, and it's not really a secret. I think anyone who's watched this team this season understands they need to hit for more power, and they need basically a frontline starter, if not someone to kind of be like the 1, 2, maybe even 3 guy. Ideally, though, a frontline starter in that rotation to kind of be the guide for Mackenzie Gore, Jake Irvin, Kate Cavalli when he gets back, Mitchell Parker, DJ Hers, those guys. Because, you're not going to have Josiah Gray for next season. And, you're obviously Trevor Williams and Patrick Corbin are becoming free agents. You probably expect Corbin not coming back. Maybe you bring back Trevor Williams if he doesn't find a better opportunity elsewhere to either compete for a rotation spot or become that long relief man that he played with the Mets before he came to DC. So those are the 2 major spots, I think, that Mike Rizzo admitted that, that's what they're looking to add. And I think everyone kind of agrees that, they need to hit home runs. They need to hit for power. They need guys. I mean, they do such a good job of getting on base, but so many times couldn't drive them in. They could not hit for slug so much as well as other teams did. But I think that really what that kind of conversation really boils down to is, are they going to spend money this offseason? And we've heard Rizzo talk. We've heard, I believe, Mr. Mark Lerner talk either in some kind of interview at one point. I can't remember exactly what that source was. But the essence of what I got from what they said is that they both kind of agree that this is the offseason, that it is finally time to spend money again on free agents, on major league players to come and help this team become another contender, another winner. And, it's all well and good if they say that in public. Whether or not they actually do it, I think is the question. Because, you never know what the market shapes out to be. You never know how the Nationals and this new scouting department, this new player development department evaluates opposing free agents. They never know how big, how big of checks the owners are going to be willing to cash. But you can hope as fans and, as people in the media that they do spend and they do add a power bat, possibly a first baseman, DH type, and a frontline starter to this rotation over this offseason. And then you can kind of see, all right, they're back into that form starting back in 2012, like you were just talking about, of continually being in it, being in to win at the major league level. So that's really what I'm looking forward to. I mean, they can talk the talk, but do they walk the walk when it comes time to actually signing big time, big name free agents?
Yeah, that's going to be the talk of the offseason is like, what do they do in free agency? And I've kind of been beating this drum. Like, I don't believe necessarily that they will go out and we'll entertain the possibility of Juan Soto coming back. Like, I'm sure they'll make an offer. At least I think, I would hope that they would make an offer because the connections here in DC. But as far as spending money in free agency, I just don't know if they can do that. Or not that they can't to do it. I just don't know if they will do it. I could see the Nationals going out there and trying to trade for a frontline starter or a power bat, or maybe take someone a little bit lesser, like a Pete Alonso type, and place him over at first base. And that answers a question for the future over at first. And as well as a big power bat, that's someone who will hit 45 home runs for hopefully the next 5+ seasons. Maybe they go after a Christian Walker type. I know Nationals fans have been all over him as well. And that would make sense. But I just feel as if at this point, Bobby, that they will go out and make a trade and not really sign someone, but you kind of just hinted around something I do want to talk about a little bit deeper with you. And that is kind of, what do you add first? Like, would you add a power bat or would you add a starting pitcher? Because I think that's a pretty good conversation to be had. And I don't know about you, Bobby, but if it was up to me, I'd add a power bat. So I'll tell you why I would add a power bat up to this point. But before we do that, I'm going to tell you guys about some of our friends over at Hims. And guys, sometimes intimate moments happen spontaneously, and we always want to be ready so we can perform in the bedroom. Hims provides access to treatments that can help you stay hard and last longer, giving you that boost of confidence so you can be ready whenever the mood strikes. Your sex life is important, but your schedule is busy. You don't have the time to go to a doctor's office, get treated for ED. Through Hims, you can get a personalized ED treatment without stepping foot outside your door. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and Cialis for their generics, up to 95% cheaper. So start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And we are joined by Bobby Blanco from MASNsports.com. And Bobby, we were just talking about what the Nationals need to do. And I think this will be one of the $1 million questions heading into free agency, and as well as maybe the GM's meeting this winter. What will the Nationals do? And really, would they add a frontline starter or should they add a frontline bat? Like, what should be number one priority? And for me at this point, it's a frontline bat. I think the Nationals, like if you were to just kind of weigh everything at once and kind of balance out the pitching against your hitting, I think the Nationals have more answers as far as starting pitchers go than they do like all-star capability kind of bats. And I think some people may think like, well, I'm very high on CJ Abrams still. Dylan Cruz could still be one of the better hitters in all of baseball, and James Wood could be an MVP candidate right there. And then we all know Brady House has a ton of capabilities down in Rochester as well, who could be making his debut as early as this spring. I still think that the Nationals need a power bat over a starting pitcher. Now, of course, they still need a frontline starting pitcher, in my opinion. But I think the more valuable play is add a front of the line kind of bat. And this season, and once you figure out where the Nationals are picking in this year's draft, then you can kind of go from there and maybe add a starting pitcher in the draft if they haven't done the last few seasons. But what do you kind of make of that, Bobby? Like, what would you be doing and what would you kind of prioritize? Is it a power bat or is it a frontline starting pitcher?
Yeah, those are clearly the 1-2 right there. But if I'm organizing those in a specific order, I'm with you. Power bat has to be number one because two things. Let's start with the offense. The offense was one of the worst slugging offenses in baseball this year. They hit the second fewest home runs in the major leagues, only 2 more than the Chicago White Sox, who were historically terrible this year. And, all this conversation that we've had up to this point, and for most of the offseason, end of the season, was how do we get back to the October next year, right? So if you look at the teams that are currently playing October, they make up most of the top 10 of the teams who hit home runs this year. I mean, only really the Royals and the Tigers hit in the lower third of the league in terms of home runs, and they made the playoffs. But the Tigers were a late season surge, and the Royals kind of came out of nowhere with Bobby Jr. being an MVP candidate and their pitching staff being unbelievable. So, I know people, you don't want to live and die by the long ball, but evidence shows in this day and age, you have to hit the long ball to make the postseason. I mean, that's just kind of how this game works now. And the Nationals don't do it enough. And like you mentioned, the names like Pete Alonso, Christian Walker, Juan Soto, all those guys ideally clearly can hit a lot of home runs and help this team immediately. It's just a matter of where you would figure out best, how much can bang for your buck are you going to get literally. I think, would you rather spend all that money on Soto or Alonso, or would you rather maybe spread it out and go for Christian Walker and then go get another bat or another pitcher, whatever it may be? So that's going to be the question. Mike Rizzo and ownership, another one that they have to face this offseason. But then we look at the pitching staff too. This is the reason I put them number 2 in that order of priorities. They had never had this much pitching depth, or at least they haven't had it in a very long time. We talked about the rotation that as it currently stands. Mackenzie Gore, Jake Irvin, Mitchell Parker, DJ Hurst, Cade Cavalli, supposedly coming back healthy finally next year. You know, you're not going to have Josiah Gray next year, but he's still in that mix for the future. And then you look at guys down on the minor league level. I mean, Jackson Rutledge is still technically a prospect that can provide innings if needed. And then a lot of the guys that can provide depth, if you need it, have taken big steps this year. Of course, Travis Sakura had a really amazing year this year. You brought in a guy like Alex Clemmie, even though he was only at single A. Andrew Lara had a really strong season up at double A this year. And then they just have a bunch of other young pitchers on the up and coming and the lower levels in the minor leagues. So they really have not had that amount of solid depth in terms of starting pitching in their system in a while. So I think even if you don't go at a front of the line starter, you can maybe even get away with adding, I don't want to say a Trevor Williams type, but like a middle tier starter to this rotation on a 2-year contract, 3-year contract, because by the time that's up, some of these younger guys will be ready to come up and fill the rotation. I mean, that might honestly be the ideal situation for the Nationals, where you're not spending too much money on a starter, and then you keep just building through within. Hopefully the guys that we just mentioned who are already established in the major league rotation take a step forward next year, and they lead this team to a playoff berth. And then you continue to add to that from within. I mean, we've seen it. They can do that. Jake Irvin, Mitchell Parker, DJ Hurst all appeared in the majors sooner than expected, all pitched well above their weight class than we expected. So that might honestly be a better path for them in terms of the rotation than just going out and signing a Corbin Burns. But I don't see them having that kind of depth in terms of a power bat in their minor league system, which is why I would think they would probably best suited going out and signing one in the offseason. That would be my number 1 priority.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Bobby. And this is also, I think this is like the best case scenario that the Nationals do go out and sign like a Christian Walker or a Pete Alonso, or if we're really going to reach high here, why not throw out the name Juan Soto as well? Right. That would be awesome. I don't think that will happen, unfortunately, but that would be great if the Nationals did that. And also just a cherry on top is make a trade. And I think the trade market as far as starting pitchers go is a little bit juicier at this point. Like you can go out there and maybe sign like a Jack Flaherty type or whatever it is, but also a name that is really sexy in my opinion that the Nationals could try to go after and make a splash trade for is Garrett Crochet. I mean, the White Sox, they are not hiding it. They are in rebuild mode right now. If you go out there, and I don't know what it would take to get Crochet, he's got a few years left on his contract, but I mean, this guy was pitching at like a Cy Young level, and he was doing this with zero support whatsoever. The White Sox had no run support for him. The defense was awful. And again, when you just know you're going to get beaten eventually, like your numbers are just going to deflate a little bit. Like it's tough to go out there every 5 days knowing that like, well, I've got a bad defense behind me. I'm going to get no run support, even though he still put up really good numbers. So I think a dream scenario for me is, again, sign a Christian Walker, sign a Pete Alonso, or just sign a power bat and go out there and, be aggressive in the trade market. Trade for a Garrett Crochet. I don't know what that would look like, what kind of package you'd have to give up, but off the top of my head, I'd be willing to move off of the Seaver King for that. I would not be willing to move off of Travis Sakura or even Harleen Susana at this point for someone like that. I just think Susana and Sakura could be a dynamic duo someday, so I would not move off them, especially Sakura, but maybe a Seaver King. If it comes down to it, Brady House potentially. Like if you aren't 100% all in on him, maybe you have Brady House. And also, so what I talked about, who I think could be traded this last week was Luis Garcia Jr. I kind of think heading into this year that Luis Garcia Jr. might be trade bait. That's kind of my hot take heading into the offseason, Bobby. But I think it's going to be interesting because, again, the Nationals are going to have options, and we'll see what they do. But I do kind of want to ask you about that because people were not thrilled with my take. I even saw someone say this is the dumbest take I've ever heard when I said that they should trade Luis Garcia Jr. But so I do want to get your take on that, and I'll kind of explain my reasoning. But before we get into it, I'm going to tell you guys about some of our good friends over at PrizePicks. And of course, PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks, and you can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. And of course, PrizePicks is available in many states across the U.S., including California, Florida, Texas, and my home state for Virginia. PrizePicks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. So, Bobby, as one YouTube commenter said, and shout out to that guy, he kept it very real, said it was the dumbest take that he's ever heard. My hot take this year is that I think the Nationals should use Luis Garcia Jr. as trade bait. And the reason why I say that is I think Luis Garcia Jr., like his offensive metrics, like he, statistically speaking, was a top 3 offensive second baseman in all of baseball. I don't know if I'll say top. He's easily top 5 from what this past season showed us. But I also think it's a little bit fool's gold. Like Luis Garcia Jr. is good. He's still young. He's a promising building block. Like the Nationals could go out there and say, Luis Garcia Jr. is a building block, and I'd believe it. Like he's decent. He's solid, but I think his past has kind of shown that he is very inconsistent, and the Nationals have a lot of inconsistent pieces. I think the time to sell Luis Garcia Jr., if there was ever a time to sell him, is now. He's still young. He's under control. He is about to hit some arbitration years here, so he will get a little bit more pricey also. But if you're going to make a trade for someone like a Garrett Crochet type, you also might as well trade a Luis Garcia Jr., save some money at the end of the day, and also get some prospects back in the door or help them facilitate a trade and get Garrett Crochet or another starting pitcher or maybe another younger second baseman in the building. So what do you kind of make of that idea that I think Luis Garcia Jr. should be trade bait?
I would agree that his value has never been higher. I mean, this was by far his best season as a major leaguer. I think once you start putting that together, it's like, what are you getting back in return? Is he looking to be bait to get more prospects? Is he going to be a part of a return for another major leaguer with another prospect? I mean, it kind of just depends how those conversations go. Someone like the White Sox, like think about what the Nationals had to do in the Juan Soto deal, right? Like they, the back and forth with the Padres was, well, if you want Yarlin Susana, then we need to include Josh Bell. Okay, well, if you were including Josh Bell, then you need to include a major league first baseman because we need someone to play first base for the end of the season. So if those conversations kind of go like that, well, if you're going to include yada, 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 then we need a major league second baseman. How about Garcia? Then we can open up that conversation. If I'm the Nationals, though, who am I for sure picking to replace him? The first name that comes to mind, obviously, is Trey Lipscomb. We know that he can play defensively up here at the major league level. Is his bat good enough? I mean, he really struggled at the plate. Even in, I know he was going up and down throughout the course of the season, so he never really got consistent playing time, and either here or in AAA Rochester. But was he good enough to do you feel confident that he could step in? Do you have to go out and sign someone else to play second base? Do you have to go trade to get someone else to second base? I just think if you're going to deal Luis Garcia Jr. for the right price. And I think Mike Rizzo deserves the benefit of the doubt. He's proven that he's very good at trade evaluations. But if you do that, then okay, that's a domino that falls that you need to. That's another, to me, unnecessary hole that you're making on this roster to fill. Like we've been talking so much about how this team, for the most part, looks like it's ready to compete next year. We just need a power bat, need to add a starting rotation, yada yada yada. At no point were we talking about, all right, we need to add a second baseman, we need to add, another infielder. Yes, we probably would like to have a backup infielder, but I think you have that in-house in Trey Lipscomb, or you can go sign one off the list and bring back Lamar Vargas, whatever it may be. I just think that if you trade someone who is coming off a career year that's still under control for 3 more seasons, that's just going to create an unnecessary hole in your major league roster that you're expecting to compete this year.
And that's the flip side of the coin there. Like, I just believe in the fact that I think the Nationals of what we knew in years past, like having a top 5, top 7 payroll, I think that's in the past under this ownership group, and I hope I'm wrong, but I just can't believe otherwise at this point. So what do the small market teams do? Well, they make trades like this. They try to get younger guys who are major league ready through the door. So if a team's out there like the Yankees, they'll likely be losing Gleyber Torres this offseason. If they re-sign Juan Soto to a mega contract, they're going to have a hole at second base. They might see Luis Garcia Jr. as someone they can give up. I could see them giving up some of their pitching prospects for him, some who are major league ready. I could see them doing that. I could see a team like I'm going to throw a team out there. I can't think of anyone else at this point, but I could see a team like the Yankees trying to make that deal. And also like a team that is, again, a smaller market, like you need some veteran guys in order to trade them at the deadline. I think a team like the White Sox, like I don't think Luis Garcia Jr. would be like the main piece of that deal. I think it would be like a Yohandy Morales or a Brady House even. And you also throw in Luis Garcia Jr. for like a Garrett Crochet type. And then you have Brady House, who will be up in the big sometime next summer. And you also have Luis Garcia Jr., who will be a middle of the infield kind of guy for you, taking over at second base, can also play shortstop. Hope to God that he has another career year, and then you trade him at the deadline for even more prospects. So I think the Nationals, if they are going to operate in a kind of small market kind of way, the way that they have been the last few seasons, then I could see them doing this. So that's kind of my reasoning there, Bobby, but we could talk about that all day long. I think I'm very fascinated with the way that the Nationals will handle this offseason. But Bobby, it's been a pleasure. And of course, Baby Blanco on the way. Will be a Nationals fan, and congratulations on that.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, very exciting. We're 2 months away, early December, a little Christmas baby, so we're very excited. But yeah, man, the trade market, that's gonna be an interesting conversation. Let's talk more about that this offseason and maybe go through some of the prospects who we deem untouchable in a trade like that.
I love that idea as well. And I've kind of done that already, but I think you might. I have one guy in there. I had a Luke Dickerson in my untouchable list. He's kind of a surprise guy out there. And some people were like, why Luke Dickerson? Well, I can tell you that another day, Bobby. How about that?
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
All right, man. Always appreciate it, Bobby. He is Bobby Blanco. Catch him over on Twitter at Bobby_Blanco and read his stuff over at massinsports.com covering your Washington Nationals. And, of course, catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11. We will catch you guys on the flip side. Have a good one and enjoy the weekend.